It's the 23rd of March 2022. Hi everybody, I'm Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the nuclear proctologist.org. I hope you're having a good day if that's possible. Welcome to the Nuclear Scumbag Show. Because that's what this basically is a nuclear scumbag show. That's what we do. Scumbag. You'll see if you hang around. Atoms for Humanity, nuclear scumbag show. So the A-10 Warthog only shoots dirty bombs. Scumbag doesn't really do it justice, but that's probably all I can get away with on Scumbag YouTube. So I just pulled trail cams. We only got one disturbance after 4 days in a new place. But I think it's a small fox. Let's start off with that before we jump into the news cycle. So that's the original speed. It disappears. And so I slow it down to 25%. And he's got a really long tail. He's not very big, him or her. Very tiny. And clipping along at the right pace. And the tracks were the right width apart. And I can play around. I'm not going to because we're going to do the news here. But I can brighten it all up and stuff like this. And saturation. I can change that out in real time. Brightness in real time. And I can change the blues and greens and the red in real time. And I really can't tell you 100%. But let's jump into the news cycle. But we finally got a picture of the bastard eating all the rabbits. Every time we find a rabbit, he comes by and he eats it after. Our case. And we're doing a species count because of Fukushima radioactive fallout is going to be an extinction event to our planet. We've been doing research expeditions for many years where we go on the ocean for 4 or 5 months at a time. And we do species counts. And what we discovered, unfortunately, was the radioactive fallout that's Noah's model. Yeah, save the insects, ban nuclear power. Okay, so we're right back to where we left off, started last night and the night before, basically, just to kind of get everybody on the same table. Now, Taiwan just had a major earthquake. We're going to cover that right away. But I want to introduce you to Fukushima reactors first so you can appreciate why an earthquake at 45 miles off the coastline of the buildings that caused over 1,000 repairs to the railway tracks 350 kilometers past that, but didn't shake the remains of the buildings. There's a story came out today about the containment of Unit 1 was down 40 centimeters. First off, that's a poll we got tonight. Does Fukushima Reactor 1 nuclear meltdown actually have a containment vessel like the Scumbag TEPCO claims? Now, we're being polite because we're only calling them scumbags, right? So that's actually being polite. And the right answer is no, of course. We got 24? Wow, we're just at the start. 24 people like, yeah, there ain't no containment. We'll cover that coming up. Now, this was Reactor 3. This was a 190-foot building. They're still claiming the building is intact, despite the fact they felt the explosion 25 miles away. And despite the fact that the fuel pools decades of reactor cores, because, they don't have a repository. Oh, and the running reactor core at the time, which was a mixed oxide fuel. It's the definition of just stupid scumbag nuclear. Should be the stupid scumbag nuclear show or something like that. So the reactor 3 over there is completely destroyed. The fuel pools are obviously gone. But they're actually claiming they got the fuel out of that building that don't exist, and that it looks like that. 100 feet above the wreckage up. You got to be above that to look down. Hard cases. You have no idea. And they've done the same thing with reactor 4. They pretend everything, no, it's all good. We're getting the fuel out of the pool here in Fukushima. Scumbags. Okay, so they had a big earthquake, and insurance company a couple of days ago said losses are going to likely go into billions. Billions. Now, their scale is 1 to 7. So they have the maximum intensity of 6 plus and a magnitude of 7.3. They're two different scales. Now, Taiwan also uses the 1 to 7 scale. We're going to cover Taiwan right away here coming up. So over half the country is violently shaking. And we're to believe that the destroyed buildings, Unit 3 in this case, and Unit 4 there's also 2 other confirmed destroyed buildings that they refuse to acknowledge are destroyed. The uppers, like the 7 is equal to a 10 on the Richter scale. Upper 6 is like a 9.4, 9.5. Now, because they're hiding it, we're worried about radioactive plumes. This model is yesterday's jet stream model coming across Japan, across the Pacific, and into Canada and America. But once it gets coming across, it actually spreads out. But that's the direction the jet stream generally goes. So you can see how it actually spreads out in increments over 16 days. 16 days. And the problem is, radiation is a lethal creature. Okay. So, insurance company says billions of dollars worth of damage. You got all the documentation showing the whole country shaking. And the government says no issues. But magically comes out now and says the fuel pool or the containment of reactor 1 is low on water. It's a lethal dose. You can't actually get near the building, let alone in the building. It burned continuously for several days. Let's cover Taiwan. Taiwan, now, these are, why do you gotta make shit so complicated for? Anyway, right here is called Orchard Island, just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with in the nuclear industry over there. They went out to the natives in Orchard Island and asked them could they put a canning factory for like tuna and salmon and stuff. They're like, yeah, that'd be great. You're going to pay taxes. It'll help the community. We're a little island. You're not going to abuse this area. And they're like, no. We're going to put a canning factory there for tuna and salmon and stuff like that. Is that okay? The nuclear industry now. That should have been your first clue. And then they put a nuclear repository there and called it a canning factory. They put all their nuclear waste, or not an actual repository, just rotten 45-gallon drums of nuclear waste they were leaking. You have no, like, when it comes to Taiwan, you're really like, what the hell, where did that come from? Taiwan, by the way, lies near this junction of 2 tectonic plates. It's prone to earthquakes. That's a great spot to put a nuclear power plant. Man, that's brilliant. That's what that is. A 7.3 magnitude quake killed more than 2,000 in 1999. I got to build you a picture of what we're up against here. 1999 GG earthquake. 2,415 people were killed. 11,300 injured. $300 billion worth of damage. Get a load of this footage. This footage is from 1999. But they got our nuclear reactors all over the place out there. Because, they're better than everybody. So this was the local running field. Now you got hills. This is apartments tipped over, because that's normal. Bridges that are torn, not like you can see the big. Can you see the truck right? See the truck right here? It kind of gives you scale. So this pillar you're looking at there was actually shifted out of place, which don't surprise me because when you see pictures like this, why would you put a nuclear reactor on that island for, you demonic demons? Man. So this is 1999. Now we're talking about 2016. This is 2016 earthquake. It's quite the charmer of this place. Totally normal, Dana, for buildings to tip over during earthquakes, right? This is 2018 earthquake, because that's normal. And back to, so you got 1999. And to give you some context what we're talking about, you can see in that picture right there, right? So that was 2016, this one rather, is 2016 earthquake damage. And so they got a 6.7 magnitude earthquake. It hits off the coast. That's being polite because it was 5 miles off the coast with 150 aftershocks and about 140 miles away from a nuclear power plant. That's going to be closed in 3 years' time because it's old and broken and decrepit and fragile and brittle. Quake was accompanied and followed by a series of tremors ranging from 4.3 to 5.8. Some hard cases, I tell you what. Bear with me. I collected this last night, but it didn't show up. There were about 150 aftershocks following the initial quake. There was 2 in a row, just like what happened off of Japan's nuclear meltdowns. Let me see if I can figure it all out because, hey, why not? Okay. Let's keep it rolling here. A series of tremors ranging 4.3 to 5.8. Tremor in Taiwan transported a week after a major earthquake in Japan. Again, they're calling that one in Japan a major earthquake, which it was, and they hit. But the problem was right off the nuclear power plant. So we got to hide that because we're better than everybody. Despite the magnitude, there's no tsunami warning, threat, watch, or alert in the country as of this writing, which was right away. And they always do that, right? Like the one off Japan's coastline said there was no injuries whatsoever as of right now. There's over 230, and 3 did by the next couple of days. I did. If they had a 9.9 earthquake, and right away they put out the story and said there's no injuries right now, and you're just like, come on, man. There are probably some injuries as of right now, but we haven't got them reported, is what you're supposed to say. You lost your way. Buildings shook on Wednesday morning in Taipei, up by a couple of nuclear power plants. But they're okay. And it was also felt in other parts of the country, like the whole country. Still, there was no immediate reports of any fatalities. It's like saying, and we're going to go have a coffee, we'll get back to you. Taiwan hit by a magnitude 6.7. Right off the coastline. How's your morning going? Around 14 million people reported feeling shaking up to 400 kilometers away from the epicenter. That's an epic earthquake. You feel it 400 miles away on an island in the middle of nowhere, per se. was 5 miles off the coastline was the first report. Yeah, 5 miles off the coast, 24 kilometers deep. That's mad. That's very shallow, very close to the tourist destinations and the little island. I mean, my goodness, with 150 aftershocks, and they're like, no, we okay in Taiwan. We import Japanese food next week. You come down and eat Fukushima sake. We take good care of you. You need transplants in the future. You see our friends in China. The U.S. Geological Survey, a bunch of scumbags, initially estimated it to be a 6.9, downgraded to 6.6, had a little poop and some coffee, dropped it back up to 6.7. Yo-yos, the yo-yos. It also revised the depth from 10 kilometers, 6 miles to 24 kilometers, 5 miles off the coastline. That's where they got the nuclear power plants. That's where the shit hit the fan. Nuclear power plants, shit hit the fan. So I'd done a, how far from the nuclear power plant to the tourist destination was 5 kilometers off that coastline. What did it tell me? 280 kilometers. But if you go the other direction towards Taipei, it's going to hit the nuclear power plant. Taipei was shaken, but not the nuclear power plant, Dana. 164 kilometers away. Well, that's kind of a funny thing, right? Because the earthquake doesn't respect borders or fences. Taiwan. Well, by the way, Taiwan had several thousand nuclear students spam the internet for several years after Fukushima melted down. And, I mean, spam the internet. 6.7 rattles Taiwan, injures 1 right off the shoreline. So we're keeping an eye on that. The chandelier in my ceiling shook for 3 minutes and didn't stop. Now, that's a real earthquake, trust me. It scares people, it's shaking so much. And they ran footage from a grocery store, showed items falling off the shelf. And bridges dropping. They downgraded to a 5.7 here. It's a 6.7. But it dropped the bridge, but done split the roads open. Yeah. Landslides, check. Rocks and boulders, check. Lifted the road up in the air, check. No damage to the nuclear plant? No. Initial quake was 5.4, followed by a 6.6, and 2 minutes later came a 6.1 aftershock, plus another 150 or so, give or take 100. Reliance on nuclear power is the last thing Japan needs. I got some more stuff coming up on Taiwan. But that's just to get that story out there, because look, I'll tell you how batshit crazy the nuclear industry is in Taiwan. That they imported food, all the food, no limits, from Fukushima nuclear meltdown and all surrounding prefectures, so they can be part of the Trans-Pacific Trade Organization Japan has cooked up to poison the planet with. So they poison their own people all day, every day with radioactive food that's going to bioaccumulate, and everybody gets sick in increments over the next couple of years on a whole different scale. So they can make a few bucks, the corporations can make a few dollars trading with Japan. That's actually evil. That's criminal. 100% criminal. I don't understand why there's so many cowards on this planet in these countries not holding their government accountable and or even talking about it. Reliance on nuclear power is the last thing Japan needs. What? Which was the Shimbu Asahi, which is a huge media in Japan, by the way. And they're showing you reactor 3 smoke and releasing radioactive emissions. That's a satellite image. Minutes after a hydrogen explosion occurred at the reactor building. Again, that's the cover story, right? It's despicable. And they all know to say that, too. It's like a secret handshake. You can't be a journalist unless you lie for the nuclear industry as an act of good faith, I guess. 11 years on, the nation's still reeling from the catastrophic damage to the Fukushima #1 nuclear power plant caused by a earthquake, tsunami, blah, 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 blah. We always hear those connotations. It wasn't nuclear, it was the earthquake, Dana, and the tsunami. Nuclear can't be hurt unless something hurts it. Another nuclear crisis could, well, it's always hemorrhaging radiation from the fuel pools, shit for brains. Another nuclear crisis could threaten the very survival of the island nation. Another nuclear crisis. You think it just had happened on the 16th? I started to show off showing you. Don't think that's a nuclear crisis? Furthermore, no solutions in sight with regards to the massive problem of how to dispose of the highly radioactive nuclear waste. Well, you've been dumping it into the ocean for 11 years. How is that going to change? It's a little too late now. You killed us. In spite of this, there are rising calls to expand the use of nuclear energy as part of a policy effort to tackle, you guessed it, global climate change. It is possible to reduce the nation's carbon footprint. And last year, the government announced a climate policy target. Many politicians, aka robots, business leaders, aka scumbags, have issued calls to restart the idled nuclear reactors. They don't actually idle. Citing policy imperatives such as carbon emission reductions, which is you, by the way. The government should not be allowed to gradually return to expanding nuclear power generation without going through the bona fide process of winning the public support. So they'll send out all the apologists, brainwash the public, and check. Back in business. Process demands public input. Well, look, nuclear's evil, dirty, gross, genocidal, ecocidal, omnicidal, and the people in charge of it are nothing but criminals and degenerate inbreeds. Yeah, pretty well covered all bases with that one, didn't I? The benefits and risks of nuclear power generation, explaining the government's policy. There is no government. There's no government. 157, hang on. There was a politician a couple of days ago. He got it right in the United Kingdom. Let's give him a listen. Can't be any worse than what I'm going to say.
Well, Mr. President, I'm minded actually to quote the great American philosopher Murray Rothbard here, that the state the state is an institution of theft writ large. Tax is just about a system where politicians and bureaucrats steal money from their citizens to squander in the most disgraceful manner. This place is no exception. Fascinatingly, and I really don't know how you manage to keep a straight face when you're talking about tax evasion, the whole Commission and the Commission bureaucracy avoid their taxes. You don't pay taxes like citizens pay taxes. You have all sorts of special deals, composite tax rates, high tax thresholds, non-contributory pension schemes. You are the biggest tax avoiders in Europe, and here you sit pontificating. Well, the message is getting home to the people of the European Union. You're going to find that Eurosceptics are coming back in June in ever greater numbers. In ever greater numbers. And I can tell you worse, as the people get your number, it won't be long before they storm this chamber and they hang you, and they'll be right.
I like him. I like him a lot. Finally, somebody makes freaking sense out there. Proponents say nuclear power plants do not emit CO2. They're the dirtiest things on the planet, for goodness sakes. Hang on. Dirty nuclear. One of the big problems with nuclear is it's evil. Not a little evil either. It's unbelievably evil. Here we go again. Whatever. Let's get it over with. I'll show you why I say nuclear is evil. Because all nuclear power plants are hemorrhaging radiation from the waste, which is all vented, and the fuel pools, which have no containment and are still splitting the atoms. The pools are overloaded, so the borated water can't stop the splitting the atom. They just stop the chain reaction hopefully from igniting. So, think about radiation. I better start off this way. So when you start looking at nuclear power plants, one thing they all 99.9% of them got in common is they're surrounded by farms, as far as you can see. Active farms that are producing food for the planet. And this is not an accident. So the radiation is always hemorrhaging out of these places. And we have endless studies how radiation is sucked up by grapevines and radiation sucked up by strawberries, and how wheat sucks up the radiation, and tomato plants suck up radiation, fruit plants, and they can use plants as a monitoring system because they bioaccumulate radiation. How potatoes suck up radiation. You can get where I'm going to. So everything on this planet sucks up the radiation, but the one thing that does it more than anything is farms. This is why they have nuclear power plants, and future nuclear power plants surrounded by farms. Currently, when you start looking into this, it can't be an accident, right? That can't be an accident, that all these nuclear power plants are surrounded by farms. They do that because that's the easy way to poison people all around the world, is to get them to eat. Now, another thing, they like building their nuclear power plants in tornado areas because it removes a lot of the radiation that bioaccumulates locally by spreading it all around the world. So do you think that's an accident? Am I just being a picky or something like that? Would you eat the food from there knowing that the soil is bioaccumulating it for 20, 30 years. Like if you stop the plants, the food is still going to be radioactive for the next hundreds of thousands of years. It's the definition of evil to have farms, to build a nuclear power plant in farmland, because they're doing it to poison you. See, and if it happens to you, you died, then you don't get it. But you've raised your children, they're eating that food, and your friends and your families, your loved ones. At least have some compassion for all of them. And even future nuclear power plants in the United Kingdom, surrounded by farms, as far as you can see. And 50 becquerels a kilogram of just cesium gamma, you'll see heart damage with children. So just eating food grown by a nuclear power plant or in Ukraine, I was shocked to find out that the world is going to be in a food shortage because Ukraine, of all places, supplies the food for the basic foods for a lot of the planet. Evil, despicable, disgusting scumbags, nuclear industry. You disgusting parasites. You really are despicable parasites. The same argument can be applied to clean energy sources like solar, wind, hydro, geothermal power. People generate using these energy sources do not emit CO2 and is based on well-established technology. Like carbon and gas and oil, or gas, oil, and coal emissions, first off, they don't cover the entire planet in radioactive plumes, pulsing energy every second for millions of years. So that's probably a plus. Let me show you that. Because that's a 20-day model of radiation failure from Fukushima. Gas, oil, and coal don't make plumes covering the entire planet. Radiation is the only plume that covers the whole planet. Oh, and it pulses energy every second in every direction. It sterilizes all the insects and everything else. That can't be good. Gas, oil, and coal don't do that. But the nuclear industry is taken to character assassination of everything but nuclear over the last decade or two. And they got access to your children and your schools and your universities and your TVs and Hollywood and everything else. Hence Spider-Man and the Hulk and the rest of the kooky superheroes. Japan is now rich in shallow coastal waters suitable for offshore wind power generation. Did you know that if you put your windmills on your mountains where the wind blows all the time, you can store energy with compressed air storage, big mine shafts. You compress your air down there at 120 psi. You can store it there for decades. Or you can just have peak power every day at your fingertips with excess energy used to supply it. And pumped hydro. But geothermal is 100, like you have wind and solar backed up by geothermal and tide power because they're 24/7. And then that's backed up with compressed air storage and pumped hydro storage. You got to use 6 of them. And you just conquered all your issues. It's that easy. It's so simple now because this is all obsolete technology we're talking about. And you don't have to be a scumbag scientist to figure it out. No offense to the scumbag scientists. Although solar, well actually, yeah, I do mean to offend you, you pieces of shit. Although solar and wind power generation is susceptible to prevailing weather conditions, the problem can be overcome with power storage facilities, not batteries, maybe if you can do that without destroying the friggin' planet, but you can have geothermal is 24/7 energy, and tidal You can predict the tide for 3,000 years to the second. It's mindless 24 hours a day energy, and compressed air and pumped hydro storage. Personally, the compressed air storage is stupid simple. It's stupid how good it is. Nothing toxic, and it's a 50-year cycle. Let's keep it rolling. Yes, reliance on nuclear power. Poll low. Now, this is a government poll. There's no such thing as a government. There's a bunch of jackals, inbreeds. They're not a government. They're not functional. Record low, 6.5% hesitant to buy food items from Fukushima. You'll love this propaganda. This is brilliant. Because of radiation fears, down 1.6 points from last year. A government survey showed. A government survey. Surely we can trust that. Surely you're not that gullible, are you? The annual survey has been conducted since 2013. They never stopped growing food there. Canada lifted all restrictions after 93 days. Like, fuck it. Just murder all the Canadians. Make them all sick. Ship it in here if nobody else will take it. We'll feed it to the shit for brain Canadians. I apologize. I kind of get upset at genocides and ecocides and omnicides. But hey, that's just me. I'm a little softy. To determine the extent of consumer concerns about the radioactive substances from the radioactive substances. That's pretty polite. Overall, 4.9% of consumers, down 1.2 points from 2021, were reluctant to buy food from the nuclear wastelands of Iwate, Miyagi, and Fukushima, the three prefectures hardest hit by the natural disasters, nuclear disasters. The peak of reluctance came in 2014. So you poisoned the shit out of everybody for the first 3 years, did you? Friggin' scum. You're just scumbags in the nuclear industry. When 19.6% of respondents said they were shying away from radioactive food from a nuclear wasteland. Hip, hip, fucking hooray. The highest reluctant ratio for all three prefectures was 14.9%. So you poisoned everybody else, did you? You demonic, sadistic, twisted, heartless, soulless, spineless. You get the picture. Put your own word in there. This year's survey, for the first time, government survey, asked the victims what measures should be taken to prevent reputational damage to the Tohoku region food products and to put consumers' minds at ease. Surely you didn't ask them that same questionnaire. If I was filling out a questionnaire and somebody asked me that question, whoever passed it to me, I'd go hunt them down and kick the shit out of them. Providing information on food safety, including inspection results, like that's going to convince me, was cited by the largest group. 46%. Well, there was inspection results, so I trusted them, because they're the government. I got to go home and murder my family now with the food. Increasing opportunities to come in contact with information on food safety. I had to go take a nap after I read that sentence. You probably think I'm kidding, don't you? I'm not. Increasing opportunities to come in contact with information on food safety was next, chosen by 35.8%. Oh yeah, I like that. That's a good question. That's a very good one. I'm very proud. My government's so clever. Racist. While 31% selected providing information on production areas. And, my favorite, of course, the charms of the food products. Totally won me over. Yeah, I got a little bit of radiation in it, but look at the charm of that fucker. Woo! Score. Give me some of that shit. Increasing opportunities to come into contact with information on food safety. I actually went and vomited, then I had to take a nap when I read that one. Because they've probably done that. That's what makes me sick to my guts. I doubt highly there was anybody... I doubt highly they actually done a survey and asked those questions. If they did, I got no respect for Japanese left in me whatsoever. Many consumers said they wanted not only to gain information on safety, but to learn production area and charms of the product. The Consumer Affairs Agency official. My daddy's a Consumer Affairs Agency official. My daddy will still beat your daddy up. We want to make use of their feedback for our future efforts because they're not finished. You let them get a toe in your door and they got a bazooka right behind it. The respondents lived in the disaster-hit Iwate, Miyagi, and Fukushima and Iwate prefectures. So now we know for a fact that they actually didn't do a survey. Because the people in those prefectures would fucking kill these people who ever got their hands on them. Tokyo metropolitan areas, including Chiba, which is right on the doorstep of Tokyo, folks. They're lunatics. I can prove it to you. As fear lingers, Fukushima rice rebounds. But they're not going to tell you it's from Fukushima. Because they love you so much. Because that's proof you can trust the government. They're not even going to tell you where the rice came from. That's one of the local scumbags in Tokyo pumping Fukushima radioactive death food to the unsuspecting victims. You buy now or we check you. Shipments of Fukushima rice have rebounded. A rice farmer in the prefecture, though, he's not happy about the situation because he's not allowed to say it comes from Fukushima. Most of, before the triple meltdown, there's actually 4. Not counting the 8 fuel pools that melted down, which was decades of reactor cores in each one. Now the bulk of his harvest is 15 tons from a single murderer. That's pretty nasty. Is designated for industrial use. You know, like restaurants, supermarkets, with no label. Ship it to Canada if you can't get rid of it, man. Mainly by, we'll take it, we're fucking stupid as they get. Mainly by convenience store and restaurant chains. Chains, you know, like McDonald's. And simply, in fact, McDonald's is making their buns the Fukushima rice. Because they got lots of it. Nobody wants it. Mainly by convenience store and restaurant. Problem is, you're bioaccumulating it all the time. Your children are. Then it catches up to you, and there's no way to escape it. And simply labeled as domestic murder food. Farmer says he's sad about it. He should be shot on sight, that fucker. I am so confident in the rice I grow. Really? You're a nuclear scientist, are you? So I wish to sell it openly under the Fukushima death label, but rice from the northeastern prefecture is still struggling to reach and it already has, by the way. So this was 2019. This was the same media as those other stories. Yeah, March the 20th, 2019, just after that anniversary, they're bragging about how they're murdering everybody. The nuclear disaster took a heavy toll on the prices of the Fukushima murder rice. Comeback has been driven by solid demand for industrial used rice for products sold at convenience stores and dishes served at restaurants. I'm almost afraid to ever go to a restaurant again now. Not that I actually do, mind you, but industrial use accounted for 65% of the shipments of rice produced in Fukushima Prefecture in 2017. Oh, and there's no comparable figures are available for the pre-disaster period. Like, they're shipping more now than pre-Fukushima. We covered that last week. And the comeback has been driven by solid demand for industrial use, where they make all kinds of products with rice. Yeah, we'll take it. It's cheap, right? Yeah, we'll take it. Industrial use accounts for more than 80% of the shipments, which is up 15% points from pre-disaster levels. They got the number on that one, don't they? There is high demand for industrial rice, which is cheap for its taste. See, you can't quantify that as harmless by taste. You murderer. Industrial use rice often only carries a domestic label with no mention of the production area. That's perfect for a nuclear wasteland now, isn't it? How evil you gotta be to do this. And actually, I don't really know anybody this evil in my personal life, I hope. Labels on the rice for household use usually show the production area, and consumers are still pulling back from the Fukushima scumbag food. And rice of the Tanoshubu strain, a brand from the Fukushima Prefecture, they created to grow in a nuclear wasteland right after the meltdowns the same year. It was put on store shelves at rice store in Tokyo last year, only to be withdrawn because of next to nothing sales. So they shipped it to Canada. Because Canada don't give a shit, right? Since 2012, they'll murder everybody in Canada so Japan can pretend they're subhumans. They can't be humans. All you can hope to be is subhumans. Since 2012, a year after the nuclear meltdowns, all bags of rice produced in the nuclear wasteland have been subject to the fake prefectural government's blanket testing. Now, if you believe that, you're kooky. The screening costs $54 million a year, because that's what it costs to pay off morons and murderers. And they steal most of that, by the way, in the government itself, right? Each year, $54 million to check the rice. And you got to drive through millions of one-ton bags to get the rice, to get the sample to check it. Like, really, there's evil and then there's nuclear. There's nothing compares to nuclear for evil. The prefectural government plans to switch to sample tests and with 2020 harvests. But they don't have to test it if you're shipping it to Canada. Canada doesn't give a shit, they said. 93 days after, Canada's like, fuck it, ship it, whatever you want here. If nobody else takes it, we'll take it. Here's my Swiss bank account number. Says Stephen Harper. Consumers are hesitant to buy products from a nuclear wasteland because of, nuclear waste. In hopes of further reducing the ratio, the prefectural government in October began sending its workers to rice shops across Japan to advertise the taste of and safety of the death rice. Yeah, it's cheap. You buy now. You die later. Kill your whole family. Big insurance. You're getting insurance. Don't eat rice. You be witch. Impact of M7.4 earthquake off mass murdering Japan's coastline continues after 1 week. Done damage everywhere but at ground zero where it came ashore, where there happened to be multiple nuclear reactors melted down. That's a friggin' miracle, that's what that is. Operations of some power plants in radioactive Miyagi and Fukushima prefectures in northeastern Japan remain suspended. So the power plants in Miyagi, Fukushima are offline, but there's no damage at the fragile nuclear meltdowns. Prompted the degenerate government to warn of possible power outages in wide areas, including Tokyo, but no damage where it came ashore at Fukushima Prefecture, right alongside the earthquake itself. 1,000 households in a nuclear wasteland were still without water as of Tuesday. The powerful earthquake, it was a massive, they call it massive, not just me, come on. I started off with all the pictures because, let me get back down to the pictures so I can make you a believer. You want to be a believer? Which one is, so, am I just being a sissy? Or does the building to you, to the left, look fragile? If you don't want an opinion on that, how about my poll that I got going tonight? Does the Fukushima Reactor 1 nuclear meltdown actually have a containment vessel like Scumbag TEPCO claims? Oh, I got 49 votes with a... How the hell do we get 8% said yes? What the fuck? Who's watching my video? You out there, you nuclear scumbags? The right answer is no, like the majority of the people took. I can't tell the difference. Looks good, pretty good to me, Dana. How about reactor 3? That looks pretty good. Bit of paint, maybe. Get out there and sweep some of that shit up, it'd be okay. Just as good as new, right? Earthquake couldn't hurt that, but destroyed the rest of the country. Praise the Lord. Jolted much of eastern Japan. Jolted much of eastern Japan, but never hurt the fragile reactors at ground zero where it came ashore. Friggin' nuclear is amazing, I tell you what. March the 6th, left 3 dead and 231 people injured. 240 houses were damaged, far, far away from the multiple nuclear meltdowns. So the earthquake had to go past the nuclear meltdowns, far, far away to damage all the buildings and everything else, but did no damage to the fragile structures that were there. Divine intervention? I don't know. I think it's just amazing. As energy crisis loom, Bay Area tech billionaires call for nuclear power. He's a billionaire. Look at him. Oh my God. What is he, a capital venturist or venture capitalist? Oh, of course he is. In February, so why are you doing a story on it now? Tweet it. Build 1,000 new state-of-the-art nuclear power plants in the U.S. and Europe right now. Take $1 billion and fuck off right now. Mark. And Tesla CEO Elon Musk, why doesn't he just shut up? Called nuclear power critical in another tweet. In the tweet, you're getting your news from tweets? Go over to my Twitter account, for fuck's sakes. And said concerns over radiation hazards are overplayed. Elon Musk... what a horrible, despicable sack of shit he turned out to be. Prominent tech billionaire. Prominent? That's a stretch. Let's go ask their employees how prominent they think they are. We're back in next generation nuclear companies include Bill Gates, whose wife left him recently because he's a monster. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. Like, as soon as they get their billions of dollars, they hate all humans instantly. We gotta kill all the humans. We got everything. I don't need nothing else. Let's get rid of the humans. And Peter Thiel. We've talked about all these nuclear arseholes before. We wouldn't be having a conversation about innovations in nuclear power today without the investment and thinking of leaders from Silicon Valley. So Josh Fried of the public policy think tank Third Way. We covered Bloomberg a couple of days ago. They're the last ones you want to be getting facts from. According to PitchBook data, venture investors poured a record $3.4 billion into nuclear startups. No, into fusion. Right, but you just conflated one and both. You kind of fix it up later, but you acknowledge that. There have particularly been an average of fewer than 10 such deals until last year when the numbers soared to 28. Yeah, but that was all fusion. Key focus has been on fusion. No, that's how you... Anything to do with nuclear, right? They'll throw billions at you anyway. Silicon Valley has been the foundation of the entire private fusion industry. Or it wouldn't even exist. Good tax write-off, see? Water level keeps falling at a reactor in Fukushima after earthquake. We were goating them for the last couple of days. Really? You got no damage, not even an extra becquerel? And they're like, yeah, water fell at the plant that don't have a containment vessel. Now, so they're talking about reactor 1. So what they're trying to do is set the stage for later. We're going to claim to get the fuel out of the pool in reactor 1. Right? So this is just, I'll show you some stuff. Hopefully. But being honest, it's very painful. Up to 1 million sieverts for the nuclear industry. Up to 1 million sieverts per hour outside of reactor 1 containment vessel. Too hot to attempt measuring other areas. They actually had to run away. It's hard to believe they're so evil. I don't understand why they're so friggin' evil. Right? Because they can't come up with solutions by always just being a piece of shit and evil. You can only come up with solutions if you admit you got a friggin' problem. And nuclear will never admit they got a problem. Now, the number 1 reactor core started melting down about 50 minutes after the cooling stopped. So a melted pile of fuel in 3.5 hours. It doesn't work that way. It hits 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, zips through the containment, zips through the cement underneath it, and goes China syndrome. If it doesn't detonate. In this case, this is the fuel pool above it detonated. Some of that fuel actually melted down through the reactor, and then the hydrogen is caused by the meltdown. So you had a major earthquake, you cracked the pool lost water, zirconium cladding was exposed. It catches fire when it's exposed to oxygen. It burns at high temperatures, but that ignites the uranium. And if anybody knows if you set fire to uranium, and the British done that down in Maralinga and Montebello in Australia, around 700 times actually. They also just use conventional explosives to blow up concentrated plutonium, uranium. It burns up to 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And there's nothing will contain it, see? So unit 1 doesn't have a containment. Hang on, let's see what else we got here. In the old shit pile. It's impossible that the bulk of the melted fuel is in the number 1 containment. Well, I'll show you the explosion maybe in a second on Unit 1. $225 sieverts an hour, which wasn't the highest. The highest was 1 million. They also have documentation showing Unit 1 containment vessel was scattered around. 3-inch thick lead plates had disappeared. There is no containment. The water levels of the damaged reactor buildings are stricken Fukushima Reactor 1. Plant continued to decline after Tokyo Electric Power Company initially reported the March 16th earthquake. Damaged reactor building, of course, these are connotations, right? Now, they covered Reactor 1 with a Kevlar sarcophagus for 5 years. This blew up, caught fire, blew up and caught fire multiple times. And what I got going on here? Unit 2. I got it. We wanted the explosion, the actual video. This is number 1 going boom. Those buildings are 190-foot buildings. To give you context of size, let's watch it again. That's the fuel pool going boom. Utilities said on March the 17th, the water levels in reactor number 1 containment vessels dropped by 20 centimeters, possibly because of something related to atmospheric pressure. It's okay if you want to go run your head into a wall at this moment. That's a normal reaction. Atmospheric pressure. The reactor containment vessel. But TEPCO said on March the 22nd, Dana, that the water levels had fallen by another 20 centimeters, which is 40 centimeters. Oh, that makes me feel better. Why not tell 2 lies? If you're going to tell 1, might as well tell 2. Possibly because earlier damage to the structure was expanded, they're talking about 2011 now, was expanded in the March 16 quake. Company said further decline cannot be explained by atmospheric pressures alone. It said radioactive water is not leaked outside the building, which normally needs 1 million gallons a minute, 4,500 tons every minute. You know, if you look at their numbers, you talk about 150 tons a day is filtered, which is equal to a garden hose 24-hour cycle. A garden hose for 4 nuclear meltdowns. That's what's stopping them from going into criticality, Dana. I almost want to bite my tongue off sometimes. Melted nuclear fuel within the vessel. Well, there's probably little pieces left in there somewhere. But there ain't no reactor core. That's long gone. That's gone China syndrome. Fuel pool went to cover the entire planet. And as far as I can tell, the reactor core went China syndrome. A robotic probe yesterday. Of course, all robots have died throughout history. And they got children making the robots for it currently. Not MIT or Harvard or Yale or Stanford or Oxford or MIT. Oh, fuck no. We got school children will come up with something later. Dana, they're working on it. Found the water level. I'm not kidding you. That's the fucked up part of this story is I'm not kidding on anything I talk about. That kind of sarcasm that I got doesn't come from it comes from the facts. They're facts, right? They're versions. It's like a police officer catches a guy cutting up bodies that, with the guns on them, that killed the people, right? And they're saying, "What are you doing?" He said, "I was giving him CPR." Like, no, you got a saw. You were cutting his leg off. I haven't shot you, for fuck's sake. No, I was giving CPR. I got you on video camera. Yeah, but I was giving CPR. With the saw, I didn't even realize I had him in my hand. I was trying to save him. Well, why is your gun matched up to the bullets? That was an accident. At a campfire, and the bullets were in the campfire accidentally, and they went off and hit these people. I was trying to save them. Found the water level in the containment vessel that don't exist was 40 centimeters lower than the usual level of 2 meters. I mean, this is bizarreness in the containment vessel. I think everybody in the Japanese nuclear industry should be thrown off a fucking building, but that's probably illegal in some parallel universe. It wouldn't be. I got to come up with a machine to get me into a parallel universe, obviously, so I can get rid of my frustration. TEPCO said it will add more cooling water if the levels drop further. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Have a nice day. Pick up the envelope on the way out the gate. Number 1 reactor is one of the 3 at the plant that melted down. There's 4 and 8 fuel pools that I like to drown a bunch of fucking nuclear scumbags in, if they actually existed. The number 1 reactor building was also hit by a hydrogen explosion. Was hit by a hydrogen explosion. Gotcha. Was hit by an explosion. Hydrogen. It caused 2 ways. Through the fuel pool melting down or the reactor core melting down, coming in contact with the outside and detonating. Melted down. Struck in the same offshore area, measured a lower 6 in Japan's seismic intensity scale of 7. So you got to take 1.43 multiplied by 6.6 to get a 9.57. So if Japan used a 10 scale for shaking, it would have been a 9.57. So instead they use a 7 scale, but don't usually tell you that. No, it was a 6.6. Well, that's not so bad. You know, at a 7. What? At a 7? Water levels also dropped at number 1, number 3 reactors following a powerful quake in February the 13th of last year. The day before or a month before the anniversary. TEPCO had to pump in additional water to keep the nuclear debris cool. First off, TEPCO doesn't even exist. It's nationalized. It's a government, right? And a scumbag government at that. Shin Godzilla, created in the bowels of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, turns a monstrous eye on bureaucracy in the wake of Fukushima. You get 'em, Shinzo. Or Shin Godzilla. Shinzo Abe. Get Shinzo Abe first. When you look at it from a high concept synopsis, Shin Godzilla is nothing radical. A mysterious disturbance in Tokyo Bay, followed by initial rampage through the city, by abrupt exit and brief respite, followed by return, bigger, badder, now armed with nuclear breath. Nuclear breath. The fly-on-the-wall presentation is more than just a superficial style choice. It's key to the film's main thesis, one that connects this installment not just to the giant lizard's original genesis in the aftermath of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Here resurrected when the film's officials wrestled with the knowledge that their failure to subdue the monster will trigger an American nuclear strike. Well, it's not American, it's the nuclear industry, right? America doesn't exist no more. It's the nuclear America industry. On March 11, 2011, an earthquake tsunami caused a chain of failures at Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, leading to meltdowns, explosions, and the releases of radioactive contaminants. Evacuation orders were ordered and dislocating some 154,000. It's actually 500,000. Didn't dislocate them. They had to flee immediately, leave all their worldly possessions behind, never go back to the graveyards to visit their loved ones, leave their pets behind to starve to death and die of thirst, and their animals and their communities and their schools and hospitals permanently evacuated. An analyst indicates it'll take some 30 to 40 years. You can't even decommission a normal reactor in 30 or 40 years. And you ain't going to be doing this one in 30, 40 years either. You ran into the homeless about 5 years ago. The government agency in charge suffered a conflict of interest between promoting nuclear power and overseeing the industry. That's always a good combo. You're in charge, you're the checks and balances. Oh, and you got to promote it. There's a tightrope you don't want to get on. For all the ways that Ano has chosen to ground Shin Godzilla in reality, which is, first off, he's a fable. The most compelling may be how the Fukushima shit show informs the narrative. Geez, you finally got something right. There are arguments about whether the creature should be destroyed, driven away, captured, or fucked with dildos. Because we're talking about Japan, let's be real here. And damage report focused on the monster's noxious radioactive secretions. That's a turn on for a bunch of Japanese right there, I bet you. And the resulting risk of contaminations. It doesn't seem to dissuade him. They're like, little girl, you want to buy some cookies? Nuclear power is not worth the risk as we make the switch to green energy. There you go. Finally, somebody lucid on the planet. Wait, what? They got farms right alongside the nuclear power plants? Jeez, I never heard of that before. That shocked me. Okay, not really, but... Following Monday's piece, Green hits back at claims over nuclear need. I got to take issues with Greg Hans, UK Energy Minister. Great name there, Greg. Your parents must have dreamt that one up all night long. He said Ukraine has given Scotland a pretext. Ukraine, of course. What a strange routine we see going on down there, isn't it? I'm still watching it, but it's nothing to report on. It's just war right now. A lot of propaganda. And a nuclear wasteland. So basically, worst case scenario, if they have a food shortage worldwide, it's still better than eating Ukraine food. Anything's better than eating Ukraine food. Ukraine's been poisoning people since Chernobyl. Man. No wonder they love Ukraine. He said Ukraine had given Scotland a pretext to get behind nuclear power and its development, and stated the UK had a really strong safety regime. They got 5,000 security guards at their mixed oxide fuel facility, in La Hague in France, and then you can assume that from those numbers that Sellafield would have had the same thing. Scotland had been involved since the 1950s in nuclear development. The Donneray was actually, it's going to be over 300 years before you can use that site without a special suit on. 300 years, nuclear wasteland. In 1963, thousands upon thousands of radioactive fuel particles, it's not thousands, it's trillions and trillions, escaped the plant, and this occurred again in 1984. This caused a fishing ban with no fishing of 1 nautical mile. This is madness, by the way. The particles had escaped when the cooling ponds were drained. The cooling ponds are evaporating all day long, by the way, into the farms and the fields all around it. They have to put about 120,000 liters in each fuel pool worldwide each day. They're hemorrhaging radiation because the fuel is still splitting the atom, just not in the reactor. It's in a fuel pool with no containment. And in the United Kingdom, they're usually outdoors. As of 2011, 2,300 radioactive particles, which are actually doing pretty good, had been recovered from the seabed. In short, and there's also a no gathering of seafood order in place till 2019. Really, what changed? Once you got a radioactive area, that's radioactive for the end of time, long past the human experience. In May 1997, a 213-foot deep shaft, a hole in the ground, 21 stories deep, was storing radioactive waste. No, they just dumped it down there. And some sodium and potassium exploded. Sodium, potassium. And caught a nuclear waste on fire, which they ignore. Smashing steel and cement lids. The cause was seawater breaching the shaft. Yeah, because the sodium will react with water or oxygen and detonate. But it's full of uranium and plutonium, say, from nuclear weapons production. During 1998, a mechanical digger ripped through a major power cable, causing disruptions to the site. Electrical supply for 16 hours triggered a safety audit. A damning report was published with 143 recommendations, which highlighted over-dependence on contractors, right? Because they don't want the regular employees to go into these zones because they're going to get viciously sick, and then the insurance is going to go crazy, and then you're going to have a record. So they bring in contractors who usually hire day workers, and you send them into the no-go zones. That's how they work, see? All nuclear power plants do it. It's the murder mode. So no comprehensive strategy for waste disposal, lack of decommissioning, poor physical conditions of the plant, failure to work to the standards required in modern nuclear facilities. United Kingdom Atomic Energy Authority, which has never decommissioned anything in their entire legacy, shortened the decommissioning from 100 years to 60. From 100 years. Oh, they can do it in 60. Who's going to be around to find out if they can do it in 60? In 1998, there was 25 tons of radioactive reactor fuel disposed of at the site. It was in the main removed to Sellafield, which is a nuclear meltdown of a mixed oxide fuel facility in the 50s. It's hemorrhaging 8 million liters a day into the Atlantic, still even today. And in 1,000 years' time, we're doing the same thing. Was completed in 2018 and 19, with Sellafield closed last year. Sellafield will never go away. There was also Britain's worst nuclear disaster at Windscale. They actually changed the name of it because when they had a nuclear meltdown, they didn't go to the other nuclear power plants looking for volunteers or the nuclear universities or nuclear companies or corporations or the military. No. They took a bus and police with guns. They went to the theaters. In the 50s, of course, the poor people sat in the back of the theaters. So they went to the theaters, kidnapped the back 2 rows of the theaters, brought them to the nuclear meltdown, put them in paper suits, and told them to push the fuel rods out of the reactor core, which was graphite. Because nuclear scientists weren't going to do it. Nuclear universities weren't going to do it. When 11 tons of uranium was ablaze for 3 days, affecting cattle, sheep, hens, and milk, 11 tons of uranium was ablaze for 3 days. It's still hemorrhaging out of there. There have been several leaks of radioactive material at Fast Lane, where the nuclear submarines are stored over the years. Britain has also several leaks, several dozen, several hundred is more like it. Britain has also been affected by overseas nuclear disasters. Chernobyl in 1986 have been called the greatest nuclear disaster of all time. Well, that doesn't mean it is. Chernobyl was a 200-ton reactor. Fukushima's are almost 800 tons each reactor, but they have decades of reactor cores and 2 pools at the top of each buildings. Each building is like 20 nuclear reactors because you don't have a repository. They closed, it's not the great, Fukushima is the greatest that we know about. Who knows what else they've done over the years. The Independent 1996 reported a large rise in cancers, which tripled in 18 months, and local doctors were demanding investigation into the rise, and through locally sourced seafood, mutton, venison, and vegetables were contaminated or linked to Chernobyl, which is most likely we're talking about which is 3,000 miles away, was probably wind scaled on that, and that it also took till 2010 before 9,700 farms could sell their livestock. But Food Standard Agency still had to test the animals 3 days before sale. It was closed officially for 24 years. 9,700 farms. Still 400 farms are closed today. It was almost 10,000 farms were closed for 24 years, 3,000 miles away from Chernobyl because of radioactive fallout. Because nuclear loves you so much. Yummy loves you. It was not as bad as Chernobyl. Really? The time of Fukushima is not as bad as Chernobyl. That's outrageous. That's what that is. In 2020, the government of Japan lifted bans on the seafood, claiming they met safety and they were more robust than America, because America and Britain and Europe had raised their levels immediately of safety. America went to 1,800 becquerels a kilogram was considered safe. And that way Japan looked reasonable at 500 becquerels a kilogram, which was reduced in 2012 to 1,000 becquerels a kilogram. But all of these were just gamma, no alpha, beta, neutrons. It would now appear the radiation levels in the shores and waters of Fukushima had fallen over the years. Well, originally, there's going to be huge numbers. So it will fall a little bit, but that's because you killed the Pacific. But some reactors are still discharging. That's polite. Ukraine's nuclear power plant, the largest in Europe, was targeted and attacked. And like even today, my family or anybody will talk about that. That's what they'll talk about, how you can't believe Russia attacked the nuclear power plant. If you knock external power to the plant melts down. You don't need to attack the plant, just their external power supply. Like, if you look at what's going on and how the propaganda is actually working, it wouldn't surprise me if the intelligence agencies had set some small fires on the nuclear plant site to get the world to turn against Putin to scare the shit out of the planet. Because they did scare the shit out of the planet. They're still talking about it everywhere I go. But that plant wasn't set on fire. They didn't target nuclear reactors because they would have melted down right away if they targeted them. It was 100% propaganda. I'm not saying Russia's cool or that Zelensky is cool. I'm just saying that there's something very dubious happened right there. Ukraine has 15 reactors, not installations, shit for brains. And if Russia does explode one of them, it could result in worse than Chernobyl. Yeah, of course it could. Chernobyl was a brand new reactor. It was a very small reactor compared to the reactors that Ukraine have. It's still brutal, though. Still over 3 million children with permanent disabilities. Ukraine is still full of orphanages of disfigured and discharted lumps of flesh that look like children because of Chernobyl. Having tried to explain why we do not need the risks of these installations, one must ask, why do we need them when the future is not going to the wind and tidal in Scotland's hydro? Yeah, Scotland doesn't need nuclear. Nuclear needs Scotland. Scotland does not need nuclear power nor weapons of mass idiocracy. What we need are hospitals and education and care for the elderly and public transport and construction. And we have enough oil and gas to last until we make the transition. So fuck off and die. That was them, not me. Ukraine leader evokes Japanese history and appeal to lawmakers in Tokyo. This is this Twilight Zone shit. So Zelensky got the ear of every parliament. He's in his secret bunker somewhere outside of Ukraine, obviously. And he's getting into these video conferences with Elon Musk's satellite service, free of charge, to get around hackers from Russia. And he's telling the lawmakers, there is no lawmakers in Tokyo. These are goblins. We've covered these for years and years and years. These are actually goblins. The Japanese Times, which is a piece of shit, by the way, reports Zelensky alluded to the atomic bombing in World War II. Right? He invoked Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Fukushima nuclear disaster, the 2011 tsunami, and the chemical weapons attack in Tokyo in 1995. As the world worries about Russia using nuclear weapons or sparking a fallout crisis at one of the Ukraine reactors. Delusional. He'll say anything at this stage, right? They need somebody else in charge down there. He'll wreck the whole country and he won't surrender. Just like they done for Syria, where they just flattened 14 million people's communities and homes and cities. And they say, okay, well, there's nothing left. Have a nice day. I have received reports that Russia is preparing to use chemical weapons, including sarin gas, Zelensky said. There's nothing he hasn't said, is it, really, when you look at it? Japan Times, which is a scumbag, said it's the first online address by a foreign leader to the Japanese lapdogs, nuclear lapdogs, known as the Diet. He mentioned Martin Luther King in his address to U.S. Congress, quoted Winston Churchill in his address to the British Parliament, told the German chancellors to tear down the wall that is emerging in Europe. He's not smart enough to write this on his own. This is probably being written by U.S. intelligence agencies. And then Zelensky gets in front of a webcam and regurgitates it. He was a fucking actor. There's zero possibility he has the fortitude for any of the stuff we're seeing. Actors are not necessarily known for fortitude, trust me. Massive water outages in Japan's Tohoku region shows a need to boost earthquake resistance. You're on a fucking fault line with 5,000 earthquakes a year. Duh. You're going to wait till nuclear meltdowns before you straighten shit. You guess what's coming, then, don't you? Powerful quake off northeastern Japan, so does the rest of us in the 8 million species. Last week left up to 70,000 households without access to water. So there's so much damage down there, it's shocking. But no damage at ground zero where the earthquake came ashore for the remains of the nuclear buildings. I think that's fucking amazing. That's fantastic. Just to put a cover on this, but it still looks like that. What the remains, the stump of Reactor 3, 190-foot building. All the reactor cores and fuel pools were at the very top of the building. Don't exist. But last year they came out and said they got all the fuel out of the pool in Reactor 3 for the March 11, 2021 10th anniversary. For the 10th anniversary, they said they got all the fuel out of the fuel pool that doesn't even exist. Oh, fucking miracle. Excuse the language. Underlining the urgent need to increase quake-resistant water pipes in a disaster-prone country. Miyagi and Fukushima, which were hit hard on March the 16th last week. but no damage to the fragile reactor 1, 2, 3, and 4 buildings. How the fuck do you people sleep at night, really? How does that actually work? You probably sleep like a log. The advantages and disadvantages of nuclear energy, earth.org. That's a site you don't ever want to go to. What a despicable sack of shit they are. A rather important advancement of nuclear energy is that from a public health perspective, it's safer than fossil fuel. Obviously, you haven't eaten from the farms surrounding these shitholes, have you? The pro-nuclear movement leverages the fact that nuclear waste is not even remotely as dangerous as the toxic chemicals from fossil fuels. First off, nuclear waste is 1 billion times more toxic than industrial poison, according to the Americans' government's energy site. There are people on this planet that shouldn't be allowed to breathe the air. Indeed, coal and oil acts as invisible killers. Oh, and are responsible for 1 in 5 deaths worldwide. That story got blown out of proportion in the last few years. So James Hansen originally came out with this fable. If you go look up his Wikipedia page, Proposed Solutions, the paper examined mortality rates per unit electrical power produced from fossil fuels, coal, gas, and nuclear power. It estimated that 1.8 million air pollution caused deaths, which was contested by other academics, by the way, were prevented worldwide between 1971 and 28 years later, 2009, through the use of nuclear power instead of fossil fuel, which works out to $64,000 a year. Now the crazies are out there claiming 1 in every 5 people died. It's actually 1 in every 2 in every, it's actually about 4 in every 5 dies from radioactive fallout from the weapons testing, all the meltdowns, the nuclear releases, the ventings, and spent fuel pools, emissions into the environment. That's the reality. I'm so furious that people like that exist on our planet. This is our planet. This is a model, a good model, based on 16 days of radioactive fallout. This model shows the entire planet covered in radioactive fallout in just 16 days. Gas, oil, and coal doesn't do that. And they don't pulse energy every second, and they don't exterminate all the species. Radiation does. And they have their site named earth.org when they're actually controlled opposition, obviously. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. Oh, yeah, the president of Taiwan meets up with former genocide mass murdering Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Why is that a headline? Got a slow day, had a bad day. Taiwan, the president of Taiwan says next month Taiwan will lift its ban on food imports from Japan's Fukushima area, and that hopes that the ban lift shows Taiwan's willingness to murder all of its citizens to comply with international standards to overcome trade barriers. So poison everybody to overcome trade barriers. She said she hopes the policy shift, the murder of the country and the genocide of all the people with radioactive food from a nuclear wasteland, will pave the way for Taiwan's inclusion into the regional Trans-Pacific Partnership Trade Pact. That's not evil. That's fucked up, man. that you would poison everybody in your country to join a trade organization. You disgusting, despicable coward. You disgusting coward. You revolting coward. They're the last people you want to do trade with is Japan. Taiwan looks to renewables, by the way. They're going to phase out nuclear by 2025. That's because they're just going to poison you. Japanese food all day, every day, in every shop. Till you drop. Here's another stupid story of the day. Fucking fusion kooky crackheads. Groundbreaking moment. United Kingdom to launch a nuclear reactor in space to create unlimited energy. Whoever fucking wrote that should be thrown off a fucking building. Britain is poised to launch a nuclear fusion reactor into space by 2027. Yeah, of course they are. Oh, 100%. We haven't heard any stories like that before now, have we? Which could create limitless clean energy. Could make you rich too, right? And a major breakthrough for the future about interplanetary travel. Like humans are the last ones that can travel in space. Males go blind after 2 fucking years, for God's sakes. Popular Fusion Limited. Because you had some investors last year, right? All of these fusion companies are basically created in the last year. A couple of them are older, but the majority of them were, about 18 of them were created in the last year. And they'll promise you the moon, the stars, the solar system, if you give them another $1 billion fucking dollars, so they can pretend that they're special to their little finger banging sweethearts that they got right now. Is developing green rocket technology could eventually send humans to distances further than our solar system. Yeah, well, there remains. They ain't going to live long enough to see it. You're talking about 50 million years at the speed of light to get where they're talking about. I just think people like this are the reason we don't have a future. Pulsar, which is a lot to gain with the propaganda. Oh, God, not net zero. You're not going to use that, are you, you piece of shit? Which was Miles Allen, right, wrote a paper with net zero. United Nations jacked it, and now we can't get away from it anymore. Fusion rocket tech and BP oil created carbon footprint. To blame you for wanting oil is why they had the ship bust up on the rocks and killed millions of birds. It was your fault, not theirs, for buying cheap ships. As fusion rocket technology only works in the vacuum of space. Well, not that. They got no proof that it works. There is no proof that that actually works like they're claiming. There's no lie big enough that they won't tell you. 6.7 magnitude earthquake hits off the coast of Taiwan. Buildings shook. And Wednesday morning in Taipei, there's 160 kilometers, right up alongside of another nuclear power plant. That didn't shake, but the buildings in Taipei did. There were no immediate, when they say that, you just want to grab them by the neck and fucking strangle them, yeah? It was 5 miles off the coast, for goodness sakes. Oh, God. This is a academic study showed up today out of China. And China's like, no adverse effects by living around nuclear power plants. It's wonderful. Yeah, you might turn into Spider-Man or the Hulk, but you're not going to get sick. For all cancers, because cancer is the only thing that's going to get from radiation, is it? Not the other 1,800 illnesses and diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and injuries that you're going to get. Just cancer, right? How long have we been doing this again? Nuclear industry desperately wants you to believe that you can only get cancer. And just certain cancers, like thyroid, no other cancers. Based on current radiation risk estimates, radiation exposure is not a plausible explanation for excess cancers observed in the vicinity of their latest, greatest shithole nuclear power plant. Nuclear power is a type of clean, and efficient, low carbon. I'm not going to put you through. It's cruel and unusual punishment if I read this shit to you. So then they got the arrogance, the hubris, the pompous pricks, only mention millisieverts. Like, you don't measure radiation fallout in millisieverts, you measure it in atomic decays per second, also known as becquerels. And when you don't do that, it means you're a scum degenerate monster. It means you're a fucking monster. It means you're evil. It means that you're a useful idiot. That's how they get their paycheck, being a useful idiot. There's heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome. The World Association of Nuclear Operators, don't even get me started. What a cover-up that study was. Internal exposures, radiation exposure, external radiation exposure. Japan's studies are all based on external radiation exposures, not internal. Because you have to evacuate over 3/4 of Japan if you've done internal. Cancer. So they're not honest. They're completely disingenuous, and dishonest, and deceptive and deceitful. And these are the pigs that done the study, made a fortune being monsters. That's how it's done, see? You put your name on the study and that pays your fucking mortgage, and your light and power, and your car payments, and gets your children into private schools and elite sport activities. That's how you make a living as a nuclear academic. You produce fake studies. That's how it's done. Not real studies. You ain't going to find it. It doesn't exist. Food security fears in Bangladesh. So Ukraine is radioactive in a bad way from Chernobyl. We know that because it's full of orphanages of disfigured children abandoned because of Chernobyl. So this is the last spot on the planet you want to eat fruit from, after Fukushima, the world's worst nuclear accident. Iodine pills against a nuclear war, no thank you. The guy who wrote this is a pompous sack of shit, but we're going to use it. Are iodine pills a clever marketing ploy, or do they really serve a purpose? Above all, are they risk-free? Well, if you already got issues, you don't want to be taking the iodine. No point in rushing to stockpile the pills, and why it can also be very dangerous to take them without the logic and medical supervision. As long as it's not the same ones that gives you chemotherapy. The war in Ukraine immediately opened up another front, that of iodine pills. Just take a walk around the streets of our cities, and you will be drawn to billboards advertising, protect yourself, your loved ones, with potassium iodine pills. Wow, eh? Which are supposed to act as a shield. What is true about this, and above all, are these pills really useful, or can they even be harmful? It's just like, what, you want me to write an article? I'm too busy killing big old dogs and big old puppies. Iodine in everyday life is essential for the proper functions of the thyroid glands, which converts it into radioactive hormones. And if you get radiation in your thyroid glands, it's converted into radioactive hormones. If it's man-made anthropogenic, as this to talk about how your gland makes hormones and how a daily dose of 5 grams and ionizing salt provides 150 micrograms, which is recommended by the United Nations little pet lapdog known as the World Health Organization. And the United Nations, of course, is 193 loving militaries that flatten countries for a living and rape and murder the women and children for a living. The same amount contained in the much hyped and expensive iodine pills. However, higher daily doses up to 225 micrograms are recommended for pregnant or breastfeeding women because the mother must also provide iodines for the fetuses. And everybody forgot to tell that to the animals and birds and everything, because they don't get thyroid pills after a nuclear accident. A thyroid that is full of iodine picks up less iodine, including radioactive iodine. So, in other words, if you take iodine before a nuclear plume from an accident reaches you, you can stop your body from sequestering the iodine in the thyroid per se, right? It's still got to go somewhere in your body, though, so it'll sequester in your muscles, usually your heart. And all the gammas will sequester in your thyroid, not just iodine, right? Cesium also sequesters in the thyroid. In the event of a nuclear accident, if large quantities of radioactive iodine are released into the air, and I would point out only in this case, potassium iodine should be distributed to the population. However, potassium iodine should be administered at the correct dosage, higher than the dosage advertised in newspapers, websites, and pharmaceuticals today, in order to completely saturate the thyroid and prevent it from picking up radioactive iodines, as was cleverly done in Poland with resounding results, which it doesn't, because we covered congenital malformations and abortions and everything else. Poland was hit hard after the accident at Chernobyl, and the Japanese in 2011. Does taking iodine pills protect against a nuclear threat? No, unfortunately not. In the event of a nuclear accident, iodine supplements are only protect against the absorption of radioactive iodines like 131, 132, 133, 129, 125, which have a short half-life for some of them, but some of them are 15 million years. It doesn't matter if it's a short half-life because it's converted into a radioactive hormone. Not only that, the damage to your thyroid lasts the rest of your life. Try not to be too honest here, buddy. But would certainly not protect against other radioactive isotopes released like cesium, which follows the chemistry of potassium, same as iodine, enters the blood, is incorporated to tissue with a half-life of 30 years. Or 90 strontium, a calcium mimic that incorporated into the bones and teeth, also into the lungs with a half-life of 29 years, there's 10 half-lives. Or plutoniums, which has a frightening half-life of 24,000 years. The biggest byproduct of these events is curium isotopes. And you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. And plutonium is named after the devil. Is iodine used as a therapy in thyroid diseases? For particular indications, yes. For example, to prepare a hyperthyroid patient for surgery, they might administer a huge dose in days before the surgery, or weeks. And German studies have shown the effects of iodine in reducing or blocking the growth of tumors. And an excessive dose of iodine exceeding 600 micrograms per day over a period of time can trigger chronic autoimmune thyroid illnesses. And there are a number of specific geographic areas in the world, including China, where drinking water is extremely rich in iodine. And if a person has an overactive thyroid gland, and giving iodine from outside would be throwing fuel on the fire and can trigger a violent hyperthyroid crisis could cause severe cardiac and fatal consequences. In the event of a radioactive iodine emission alert, which they won't actually warn you until it's too late, follow the instructions on the package before you get murdered. Don't listen to these wingnuts. So there's Japan's nuclear watchdog ways giving children priority in distribution of iodine tablets. Lithuania had to purchase 4 million iodine tablets because of a Belarus nuclear power plant. 4 million. We'll spend 1 million euros on 4 million tablets, which is the right thing to do, unfortunately. They're still not going to protect you, but it's a start. France to give more people iodine tablets after expanding nuclear security. So they moved, it was originally 10 miles away, 10 kilometers away. Now 2.2 million people living close to nuclear death machines known as power plants to help protect them from radiation in case of an accident. People living within 20 kilometers of the EDF's 19 nuclear plants, as well as some 200,000 institutions, including schools, can pick up the tablets from the nearest pharmacy. 2.2 million people run into the pharmacy. They probably won't even bother. Can pick up tablets from the nearest pharmacy. You should mail it out to them. Make sure they get it. Previously, France distributed tablets only to people within 10-kilometer radius. But they found all kinds of flaws in the nuclear power plant, so they were trying to cover their ass. That's all that was. And they always mention cancer, as if cancer is the only thing you have to worry about. They said that in case of a nuclear accident, people should seek shelter in buildings to avoid the fallout, see? And not go pick up the children. They'll take care of your children. You can trust them. They love you so much. And with Fukushima disaster mine, Germany boost iodine. That story was missing from the Japan Times. Way to go, Japan Times. Thank goodness Scumbag Yahoo had a copy. Germany bolsters iodine supply in case of a nuclear accident, I'll say. 189 million iodine tablets. 189 million. 4 times what they used to store. You go, Germany. Cancer. Another one not found. Miyagi residences can get iodine tablets by mail. France is too cheap to mail it out, see? Miyagi residences can get iodine tablets by mail. Anybody who lives within 5 kilometers of Okinawa nuclear plant, which is shut down if I remember correctly, you can still get iodine tablets though because it can still melt down. The fuel pools can. All residents required to attend a briefing to learn about the possible side effects and answer questions from doctors before receiving the tablets. Or they can just watch a video at the local website, the local government Yahoo website. Yes, to be an evil scumbag nuclear apologist must be wonderful. It must be so wonderful to be a nuclear scumbag. Because there's a lot of them out there, baby. So we're going to close the poll down. Goodbye, poll. Been nice to know you. Does Fukushima Reactor 1 nuclear meltdown actually have containment vessels like Scumbag TEPCO claims? And survey says 94% says fuck no. No, bitch, no. No offense there, folks. So we're going to close that poll down on 65. Yeah, 65 people. Says TEPCO's nothing but a scumbag. They're right. Nuclear pile of scum. I'm hearing you, man. Is there anything bigger than Fukushima? No. I hope not, anyway. Patrick Albert, James Lucid, thank you, James, donated 60 last night. That was fantastic. John Curtis donated 12. Gonna combine that with some more, and there's a sale gonna go up for. I still need 2 more major pieces for my equipment. I got to get a tap and die set, a real one, and they're on sale starting tomorrow for 100. And I got to get a compressor, like a 20-gallon compressor. I'm going to get a second-hand one of them. There's one out there now for 260, but I got to raise the money first. But the tap and die set is 100 piece because I picked up 2 strip bolt sets. So if the bolts are stripped, I can remove them. I even got the deep socket set for them, for the impact wrench. And then I got the bits that you screw into a broken bolt to extract it out, which are threaded the opposite way, right? So and to complement that, I need the tap and die set so I can tap out a hole or rethread a bolt, right? And because I got so much equipment for research, and it's all old now, I got all kinds of shit that's broke that I got to get repaired this spring. Super excited that we got most of the equipment gathered up. And so I got enough gathered up now. When I get the tap and die set, that literally takes a lot of stress off my shoulder because I'm starting to tinker with stuff now because we had such a strange winter. And I'm very stoked about fixing the equipment rather than mechanics robbing me all the time. Just one major fix will pay for all the equipment anyway. The same money I would have burnt on a mechanic. It's just I don't want to do knuckle busting anymore, but face reality. It's the right thing to do, right? Albert, nobody, Chelsea, MC, Obsolete Optics, Shayla, Richard, Christian. Good night, everybody. Dana Nasana. All wars are banker wars, yeah. Good night, everybody. Hope you all have a nice night, nice day tomorrow. Shane Clark. Good night, everyone. John Curtis. Thank you again, John. I appreciate it. Scrolling down through the names here. Quick shout outs for everybody that I can spot. Haven't seen Colette for a few days. Hope she's doing okay. It's a tough subject for people, right? Nuclear is not most people's forte. Patrick, it's a difficult subject, and there's nothing I can do about that. All I can do is, tonight's not one of my prime examples or nothing, but all I can do is tell the truth without swearing like I did tonight. Chet Austin. Stan Plastic. Stick to the topic. I'm just almost down to the comments section here, to most recent comments. Fuck, this was a lot of work today. And it's over so fast. It's just, where the freak did the time go? It's 12 o'clock here. There's that little fox too. Let's get him up on the repeat while I'm mumbling here. Here, Foxy. He's way up there somewhere. There we go. He's such a cutie. We're almost through it now. I'll read people's comments after, but I can't, because the little laptop's quite a ways away from me. It's very difficult to read from that distance. I seem to manage, but I'm not perfect. Oh, there's Colette. She's there listening, which I figured it was anyway. In the background. It's a good spot to be, but it's get pretty crazy around here sometimes. I was just giving you a shout out, just to let you know. I don't blame people if you don't want to come back and listen to this stuff. Because, I get it. I get it. It's a real tough subject for people, right? Thanks, Shayla. It is a tough subject, though. I kind of get that, right? I don't begrudge anybody. No, I don't sell iodine tablets, no. I should probably, but I don't. I do sell all kinds of other stuff in my shop. The price is in the first link at the bottom of the description for my merchandise. That's like t-shirts and sweatshirts down there for $17, $18, $19. I can't keep selling them at that price. It's just that particular set. I put it there for cheap so people can start a conversation with their friends and families, right? Wear the shirt. Wear the shirt and you can get a conversation going with just about anybody. Diane, I can't pronounce your name. Sorry. Thank you. Ayers, I can't pronounce your name either. Fuck, I can't even pronounce my own name. Looks like I got everybody. Yeah, I know, because I can't actually see your name, Stan. I'll just call you Stan. That's what I used to call you before, wasn't it, Stan? But I always think of Soap Park whenever I hear the word Stan, so that's probably not good. Turkey Soap, Port Angeles. Okay, looks like we wrapped it up. You got 64 votes, or 64 thumbs up tonight. So I don't know. I think it's a fox with that long tail, and it's a very small animal, very dainty the way it's trotting past the camera. I was thinking, because there's a trail right straight where I'm pointing, so I was expecting to come up that trail, right? So in daylight, you would see him coming all the way up the trail. But we're learning, because every trail cam is different, right? So I'm learning. But that's a huge win that we got the mysterious animal on camera finally. I brought them out about two hours before I went live. I ran in and picked it up. I was going to wait till tomorrow, but I got another spot I want to put the cameras tomorrow. Okay, folks. That's all she wrote, I guess, is it? Just, like, I worked so friggin' hard and it's over in 2 hours. Just doesn't seem right. Seems like it should take 3 hours to do what I got. I'm not complaining. It's 12 o'clock, midnight where I'm to. 5 after 12. It's just so much work, you expect it to take longer, that's all. Anyway, God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody, except for the nuclear industry. Go fuck yourselves. Hope you fucking fall and break your fucking necks. But everybody else, hugs for you and your friends, and your families, your loved ones. God bless you, the ground you walk on. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Have a great night, folks. Take care.